Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audios, one episode a day, 7 days a week, usually. And today, on the 2nd of May, 2018, we are starting the next John Pertwee story, Colony in Space, which was televised as part of the eighth season of the show. It's the penultimate story of the 8th season of the show. I can't believe we're actually nearly done with... After this, we'll be nearly done with season 8. Going much quicker than the Troughton seasons, as the amount of episodes was generally sliced in half at this point in the show's history. And we open with a... What's interesting, we open with the what's we open with the Time Lords essentially being not only being there, but they're there for but as they are there, they are they don't have, as a story, they don't really have everything to, they don't have everything as everything completely, you have everything basically working to have its time in the sun, as everything really builds. You have the Time Lords appear, and they give the Doctor back his ability to time travel just for this one story, which he uses to show Jo the inside of the TARDIS. And what's great is that you have a lot of this episode is really Jo reacting to being on a new planet, mainly because the Master has stolen plans for a doomsday weapon that has been hidden on this planet. So we know he's coming, though he's not here yet, which is a bit of a trick because you wouldn't want to reveal it. The first scene with the Time Lords is kind of an extraneous scene, to be brutally honest. It's one that probably could have been done a little better if they just didn't have it there and they left it more up to the imagination of the audience, mainly because, again, you have that sort of, we know the Master's coming, and I have a feeling that they're going to want to do it as a twist, which, well, now they can't really do it as a twist because they've already ruined the twist as it goes. Then what happens after that is that we are set up this colony where there are basically a bunch of colonists. They aren't doing too well. They are kind of they're kind of losing just a little bit of the a little bit of basically, their supplies, and they already came here run down. They're very, very low tech as a colony, and they're trying to be nice with the natives, and they're trying to keep everything to work, but they've been stalked and killed by monsters. And the Doctor already points out that on the scene of one of the newest crimes is that, hey, this crime doesn't make any sense because, well, it's one of those things where it's like there aren't any, there isn't, there's like the evidence is that a giant lizard came and clawed them up, clawed at them 20 feet tall, but in a very small building. So it's just things that are almost impossible, and it's things like this where the story is interesting. We open with we have a mystery. The mystery has to be solved, like what's happening to these colonists. These colonists. I said coloners. These colonists who are there, and they sort of just build up as like the mystery of what is this thing that's attacking them? So yeah, it's really good as things that are, it is building up. Though I have the feeling again, mainly because of this whole that we know the message is going to be in it. We're just sort of waiting for him to show up now. That sort of loses a little bit of the thing, and also the direction by first-time director Michael E. Bryant isn't the best. People always point to the TARDIS dematerializing with a pop and rematerializing with a pop instead of the fade out that is more common. But other than that, it's a pretty good episode. So I'll give Colony in Space episode 1 an 8 out of 10 because Malcolm Hulke's writing is really solid, and it's a really solid start to a new story. Alright, it is the 3rd of May, 2018, and I just finished watching episode 2 of Colony in Space. And this episode is a bit of a step down from the last one, partially because, well, Malcolm Hulke seems to be taking his audience for granted. He's sort of doing this thing where he's going to reveal a twist that comes. It's going to come up later in the episode to the audience before it actually comes up to the characters. And we're probably going to, it feels, it just, and you know, we're going to have to expect like, oh, what a twist. How surprising that the random guy who appeared at the colony, who wasn't our main protagonist, claimed to be from another colony, even though there was no other colony on this planet. Well, that was all documented, is actually from IMC and is actually responsible for screwing with the power. Oh yeah, and killing the only guy who knows how to work the power. Basically, also IMC are introduced in this episode as the villains. They are cartoonishly evil. Like, they're like, well, we're just gonna let them all die. We don't care. And I mean, I get it. The whole point is that big business is bad. But also, they don't care big business usually doesn't care indirectly. This is direct. This story sort of takes you out of it because this is direct murder. This isn't like, it's sort of like on different levels of morality, because at least when big businesses kill people indirectly, and I'm not defending big businesses here, I don't like a lot of big businesses, but with big businesses, the way set up the way they are, they don't have to think about it, whereas this one, our Captain Dent, the leader of IMC on this planet, literally has to be like, right, we're just gonna kill them. It's gonna be fine. No one will find out. It sort of makes him a kind of it's not an over the top villain, but it's a villain. But Dent is a villain enough to be like just like completely, you know, sort of as loony as it is. Like it's not a subtle portrayal. Like, no, he's evil. And Morris Perry, who plays him, is really good and really sinister. But yeah, and you know, he's just, a lot of the point is greed. It's just one of those things where it's like, well, you've just made your villain cartoonishly evil for evil's sake, and it's no longer, it's no longer as, you just sort of lose a little bit of the, you lose just a little bit of the, you know, of the realism with that, which I find to be quite a shame, because there's quite a lot that you could do with him, as a character. It's one of those things that could be going, like, it doesn't work too well. You also have, what's interesting is that you have this one guy, and one of the IMC members, the one who initially finds the Doctor, his name is, I believe his name is, what is his name? I cannot remember his name to save the life of me, because I know Morgan is the other really evil one. Caldwell, who's like sort of like the stand-up, almost like the stand-up guy, which is he's an interesting character. But part of the problem with this story in general is just that as a story, it's not necessarily just that it's as an episode. It's not that it's weak. It's just that you sort of have these characters where it's like, oh, okay, we get it. We're doing this thing where it's like, oh, they're evil and corporations are bad, and you have, it's not like, I'm not going to say that that the work with like the primitives, sort of making them almost psychic primitives, aren't interesting ideas. It's just you sort of lose a little bit of you lose me a little bit when you get this whole oh they're evil because colonists, which it's like yeah colonialism bad, we know. So I'm gonna give Colony in Space Episode 2 a 6 out of 10 because it's good. It's just already taking a small downhill turn. Alright, it is the 7th of May, 2018, and the first day of my exam week, hence why there were no episodes watched over the weekend and on Friday as I was studying, the harshness of the studying is over now. I'm probably going to be able to at least get a couple of episodes out. So, on the 7th of May, we have watched Episode 3 of Colony in Space, and this one is kind of dull. Which is really weird, because this is the one where the Doctor has an espionage mission. Joe gets strapped to a bomb that's about to explode and kidnapped by the locals. There's some good stuff here. Really good stuff, but a lot of the episode just kind of falls apart. We continue the whole Dent being evil for evil's sake, which, when I was talking about Episode 2, I brought that up. He's just like, oh, we're just gonna, show up. At least he has the sense to kind of crap his pants when the Doctor shows up, but he's also like, the adjudicators are coming, we can just say he's a madman. Again, this is one of the, he's just a villain that isn't the most interesting villain of all, because he really is just like, my motivation is, I'm evil, and that's not the best motivation for anything. Really, just evil? Evil doesn't really pay. It's just, look at me, I am bad, and I am trying to kill everybody. You have Caldwell, who's the one decent guy from all of the IMC. Though he's sort of like, well, I'm stuck. And he's so much so that he throws away his career in this episode. Even though he really he doesn't help the colonists much. He does what he can try to do. And he's going to try to make sure that actually the adjudicator will listen to them, the colonists, fairly, and have them, basically work out. You have Jo actually using her escapology because she gets taken captive, just sort of to keep and put tied up to a bomb that's used as mining equipment, which makes perfect sense, even if it is just a little bit silly. And the big cliffhanger is that Jo gets trapped and sent down into the depths of the planet with the primitives. Other than that, the adjudicator is called for. The Doctor I like the way the Doctor gets his way out of everything. And yeah, we have the Doctor and 2 other colonists sneaking into the IMC ship to try and rescue Jo, which is a good scene. The rest of the episode isn't as good. This is just sort of a dragging middle episode where Malcolm Hulke doesn't really know what he wants to do with the rest of this story, which is a shame, because he was great at writing Doctor Who and the Silurians. This is just sort of meh. I don't really know what I'm doing, but we're sort of going with it, and it's an episode. It happens. You really feel like we could be going for something a little more interesting on this one. We have colonists, we have space travel, we have some nice shots of the ship landing, we have duplicitous corporations, but there just isn't enough nuance here, really, to at least nuance portrayal of the corporation. They're just really over the top evil, and they're still supposed to be human beings. I might get it if they were aliens, like, an alien mining corporation might actually work a little better, because you can at least get away with some of the we're over the top evil and we hate puppies and children and mwahaha, we're evil. But other than that, this episode is just kind of meh. It's in the middle. We're halfway through the story, which is great, because it's a 6-episode story, and 6-episode stories are generally really long. They feel really long. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give Colony in Space episode 3 a 5 out of 10. It's mediocre. It's all I can say, really. Right, it is the 8th of May, 2018, and I just finished watching episode 4 of Colony in Space, and, well, you'd think this episode would take a turn for the better, and by the end of it, it does, but it takes a while to actually get there, mainly because the Master shows up. We've been building up his appearance in this episode, in this serial, since episode 1, actually, was when the idea was introduced that he had stolen a doomsday weapon, and you sort of get his plan to actually sort of get the colonists to work on his side, work for him, do his bidding subtly, not through your methods of hypnosis and attempts to essentially make them become his slaves, because that's what the Master does. He makes people his slaves. He's essentially a slave owner, and it's hilarious. But what he's doing is he is working on getting everyone, essentially, he's pretending to be the adjudicator from Sirius 4, and I think it's from Sirius 4. I don't even actually know what planet he's supposed to be from. And he's like, well, he pretends to be sympathetic to the colonists, which, good start, decent way to get them on your side. But points for failing because, well, by the end of the episode you realize, no, he's still the Master. He still has his ulterior motive. I mean, he even's like, well, if I could, of course, we could do. I'm gonna vote in the IMC's decision because Earth just needs the metal. And again, this is a performance that Roger Delgado gives amazingly. Like, he is really good as the Master. And it was just Earth needs the metal so much. I can't do anything, but if this planet had any historic significance, I could maybe accept an appeal. Basically, because he's trying to get at the city of the natives, which we actually see the inside of. That's where the episode falls flat. It's 15 minutes of a bore fest, because you have the telepathic aliens who don't speak, so they're trying to do it with no dialogue, and it doesn't quite work out very well. It doesn't flow as well as it should be flowing, because it's not really that good of an episode at all. It's not. It's one of those episodes that's like, okay, we have this idea. So like the last 10 minutes of the episode, 5 to 10ish minutes, when the Doctor and the Master actually get to confront each other, even though it's not like a final story ending confrontation, it's a very, very minor confrontation in the sense of Doctor Master confrontations, but it's still a confrontation. So that's really where a lot of the enjoyment of this episode lies. Like, it's not because the Doctor and the Master are facing off. So hopefully maybe episode 5 will be better in this regard. And oddly enough, you have the colonists essentially going into a shootout, and the Master actually threatens the Doctor to kill him. Like, oh, you'll be a victim of stray bullets. And Roger Delgado, again, there's a reason I'm talking about Roger Delgado, because he's the one who's stealing the show this episode. He's mainly the reason to watch this stupid thing. It's not because, oh, I'm John Pertwee and I'm Katie Manning and we're great, because they're usually really good, but they're just not really on form this time. So I'm going to give Colony in Space episode 4 a 4 out of 10, because it's bad. Alright, it is the 9th of May 2018, and I just finished watching episode 5 of Colony in Space. And this episode actually is great. It's probably the best episode since episode 1, mainly because, well, it knows sort of what it wants to be. You have the Master and the Doctor getting to have some really good banter with each other, which is always a plus. You have the Doctor, you have the colonists just standing up for themselves and essentially trying to running IMC off the planet, even though they eventually, get back to everything, and come back for vengeance. You have Joe being captured, the Doctor being forced to take the Master to the city, of I guess they're the Primitives. You have the Master threatening Joe's life, basically saying, if you don't, if you don't, if you don't, help me, and if you try to send someone to save Joe, I'm just gonna flat out kill her. So the stakes are high. We also get to see the inside of the Master's TARDIS for the first time, which is just a redecorated set of the third Doctor's TARDIS, which makes sense, though it looks a bit bigger than the Doctor's actual TARDIS. But basically, because it's one of those things where, everything really does continue to keep going at least a little bit. You have, because it is a pretty good way of starting everything. Like you get everything. You get everything starting, but you don't really get the completed everything. You really do get the feeling that that the Doctor really does want to help out Joe, and you have the colonists who are really trying their best, even though they went to violence, which of course caused a lot of their problems. But they're still trying to fix everything. It's not just one of those everything can be. Not everything can be good in the end. It ends sadly. There's a sad enough ending. That just about everything is gonna fall apart. And you have this great ending where some of the MC people make it into the TARDIS, and actually, including Cobalt, they actually try to get Joe out, and that's our cliffhanger, is that the Master notices this and is ready to goes to press the button to kill her. So you really do get the feeling that this could be the end of Joe Grant, and that's outside. Now, of course, these other things are good. But there's still a lot of the problems of the other episodes. You have the pacing being really bad, some of the writing just not being up to snuff, and again, it feels there's a lot of shots that are really slow, and it seems that they're just there to be like, well, we needed to continue these, so we need to continue this story, so we kept it going. So I'm gonna give Colony in Space episode 5 a 7 out of 10, because it's a definite improvement over the last few episodes, but it's still not perfect. Alright, it is the 10th of May 2018, and I just finished watching episode 6, the final episode of Colony in Space. And this is the episode where everything sort of ends. It tries to get wrapped up in a nice little bow, but without getting wrapped up in a nice little bow, it's just like, oh, we're doing the story, and it's gonna end happy, and the colonists are gonna win, and the big bad corporation is gonna have to leave, and we're all gonna be happy, which, yeah, it's a decent ending. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad way to end the story, and it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we're ending, and it feels like it's a real ending, but, well, the ending itself is just sort of flat. You have, essentially, it's trying to be an action sequence. The Master wants to take over the universe with this doomsday device, and he and the primitives who were like, oh, we can never let you come back here or you'll be killed. They're like, well, we're just gonna let you go, Doctor, because you're obviously forced. Like, they're oddly reasonable, like sort of undoing the threat that they built up of that they built themselves up as the threat. But they're like, no, we aren't evil. We're just gonna do what we do. And I'm just thinking, really, is that really everything that they can do? Like, it could be done better. And like, there's this whole idea of this frieze that tells their history, and I don't like to complain about a bad design, but it looks like it was just squiggled onto the wall, and squiggled onto the wall last minute, like, hey, this is it, like, this is everything we've got. So you don't get the feeling that it's it isn't a good solution. It's just we need to end this story, so we are going to get everything done. And of course, the miners get their comeuppance in the end, and that's nice, I guess, for them. Like, yay, the evil miners aren't gonna be they're essentially going to be taking everything over. But it's not that solid of a conclusion. It's like, no, the story's over. We're bored. We're done. We're done with this story. So it's just leaving another episode that's just bad. So I'm going to give Colony in Space episode 6 another 4 out of 10. That being said, we take all the scores of the 6 previous episodes of Colony in Space to give the episode a final average score of 5.6 out of 10. Thank you everyone for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time when we tackle the Season 8 finale in the Demons, or the Daemons. It really depends on how you pronounce it.